For people who may not be familiar with the National Center for Victims of Crime, what role does it play in the victim service landscape today?
It's important before we even talk about that to talk about the history of NCVC. We were founded by the children of a very famous murder victim named Sunny Von Bulow. And this was in the 1980s. Her husband attempted to kill her, and her kids during the trials were just so appalled by how they were treated by the justice system and by the media. So we were really founded to help push through a lot of victims' rights. Every state now has a crime victim bill of rights, and NCVC was really instrumental in the 80s and 90s in making sure those were passed. Today, we focus on direct victim services, training professionals in the field on how to help victims, but we've really expanded from what our original focus was.
Was leadership in victim services always a part of the plan for you?
I actually went to law school with the intention of becoming a child abuse prosecutor. I became a corporate lawyer, but really within 5 or 6 years realized that I wasn't doing what I really planned to do and what I wanted to do. So I took over a nonprofit law firm that focused on the rights of domestic violence victims, and then came to the National Center predominantly to run our bar association, but have been here now for 7 years and have been the CEO for 6. So within about a year, I had become the CEO of NCVC.
What do you believe makes a good leader?
Compassion and understanding, but also the willingness to hold people accountable. There's almost a fear of holding people accountable, and there's not an understanding of how you can be very compassionate while also keeping a team in line.
Yeah, that's always something that's interesting to balance, because you want to be able to get a proper output, but you also don't want to be so harsh that you're discouraging.
And I will say, I let my team see my flaws. I have cried on work calls. I have made major mistakes and I have apologized. I think keeping it very real and authentic also goes a long way.
Was there a specific moment or experience early in your career that made you know that this is what you're meant to do?
In the victim services field, probably more than any other field, everybody has a background story. I grew up in a family that experienced quite a bit of trauma. And so, that was why I went to law school, to become a child abuse prosecutor. So I think my life has been leading up to this career. We all have a reason. And so not necessarily that this was always my plan, but definitely that my life has arced in this direction.
Working in advocacy can be extremely emotionally demanding. How do you take care of your mental health and make space for your own life?
We have become very good as an organization of putting in guardrails to make sure that everybody is checking on their mental health. We have a lot of PTO that we offer. We encourage folks to take it. I live on a farm, so I have goats and sheep and a turkey. And so my mental break is usually going out to check on them. And so right before we hopped on, I was outside calling for my turkey. One of the interesting things I've learned about this is everybody has certain ideas of what you should do to de-stress or what you should do to take a break. What works for someone else might not necessarily work for you.
Throughout your career, is there a moment that you are most proud of?
This is a field that offers so many moments like that and so much reward that to be able to pick one victim or one story is really difficult. My parents, they called me the other day to tell me that they were talking to one of their colleagues. They said, "Oh, I can't believe Renee's the CEO of the National Center. They helped us so much when this happened back in the 90s. And there's so many stories like that where people come forward or tell me like how much the center has meant to them.
To be able to be a leader in a center that you see has so much real impact, I mean, that's got to be inspiration for you every day. Speaking of inspiration, are there any projects that you're working on that you're really excited for?
We are doing a lot of work in the true crime space. When I started in the field, true crime was really looked down upon, and that's fair, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but the field was really avoiding talking about true crime. We started to get involved because in my mind, first of all, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's not going away. I realized it was one of the last places that victims don't have good advocacy. And they're really taken advantage of and re-traumatized and exploited for the past 5 years. We've gone to an event called CrimeCon. So I will tell you, last year I was so excited. I'm such a dork. We started calling it ethical true crime consumption, ethical true crime, ethical true crime. We just kept trying to hammer that in. And last year they had this big awards ceremony, and I think every single speaker dropped the word ethical, talked about how they were ethical. And I was like, you're not actually ethical, but at least you recognize that you should be. One of our approaches was approaching the general public with this and saying like, hey, you have a responsibility to only consume content that has been made ethically, and you can force these podcasters to change. They're only going to do what you like them to do. So we've really started to get in that psyche to kind of change the course of where true crime is going. And we're starting to see, it's a very tiny trickle effect, but we are starting to see some change there.
In your vision for making more trauma-informed true crime, how do you see that looking without necessarily sacrificing the story element that people are drawn to true crime for?
True crime has a place, and true crime can be very good for victims. When we go to CrimeCon, there are quite a few victims' families that come to CrimeCon because they are trying to get attention to their cases. And one of our big pushes has been just involve victims. Just make sure you're talking to them, ask permission before you cover the story, or at a minimum, give them a heads up.
Do you have any words of encouragement for anyone who's looking to enter into the field of advocacy?
I think I would tell folks it's worth it. Martin Luther King had an amazing quote, and it was, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And that's what we see in the victims' rights movement, especially, is that when you look back at the timeline, things have been getting progressively better. And there are victims out there that need you. So even if you aren't making these huge splashy differences, being the difference in just that one person's life, being the person that's there and helps them through what's the hardest part of their life, it's all worth it.